Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Duston deck profile. So Dustons are a really interesting deck that OTK your opponent and were released over multiple sets. It's a really interesting deck that I actually don't see that often, and I've been toying with the idea of actually profiling this deck for a very long time. But this is actually the first time I've ever profiled Duston on the channel, and I've been playing around with the deck a lot recently because I think it's a really interesting deck, especially the way that it makes your opponent attack into your monsters and then makes a really powerful monster in the form of Star Duston to be able to basically OTK your opponent. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below where we have all those awesome rewards like getting your name searched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Star Duston. So Star Duston is like the big OTK piece of the entire deck with some insane effects that has the ability that it cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by sending any number of Duston monsters you control to the graveyard. It cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains attack and defense equal to the number of monsters sent to the graveyard to special summon this card times 1,000. Which is usually 5 monsters that you're going to be sending, because it's very easy to actually get all 5 of your Dustons out on your side of the field. And then your opponent cannot flip or special summon any monsters or activate set spells or traps on the field. So basically it totally locks your opponent down to being able to do absolutely nothing. And if you control more monsters than your opponent does, destroy this card. So this card's going to make it so you can OTK your opponent ridiculously easy with a couple of cards that are in the trap lineup. So be on the lookout for those. We then play 3 copies of White Duston. So White Duston does literally nothing in the deck. It basically just special summons to your field or your opponent's field to have you an additional monster on the field to be able to OTK your opponent. It has 0 attack and 1,000 defense. We then play 2 copies of Blue Duston. So Blue Duston cannot be used as fusion, synchro, or Xe material, or while it's for a summon. And then while this face-up card is on the field, it cannot be tributed either. And then when this card on the field is destroyed, you banish 1 random card from the controller's hand face down until the standby phase of the next turn. You only control 1 Blue Duston. So it's kind of neat because you can actually give these monsters to your opponent and then they get the downside, which is kind of neat. We then play 2 copies of Yellow Duston. Yellow Duston has the same ability. All your Duston monsters share the ability that cannot be used for fusion, synchro, or Xe material for the summon, and while they're facing on the field, they also can't be treated, but then they have added effects. Like Yellow has the ability that when this card is on the field is destroyed, the controller targets 1 monster in their graveyard and shuffles it into the deck, which is a pretty good effect just to shuffle something back into the deck, actually. It kind of comes in beneficial to us with this one sometimes. We then play a single copy of Red Duston. Red Duston has the ability that when this card on the field is destroyed, the controller takes 500 points of damage. 1 copy of Green Duston, because it has the ability that when this card on the field is destroyed, the controller targets 1 spell or trap they control and returns that target to the hand. And then we play 3 copies of Duston, or House Duston. So House Duston is how the entire deck works. So this is a really neat card that has some really interesting effects. That has the ability that when this face-up card is destroyed by your opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, and sent to the graveyard, it has the ability that you can special summon any number of Duston monsters from your monsters of your choice from your hand or deck to anywhere on the field, but you must special summon an equal number of monsters to both players' fields. So, if your opponent only controls 1 monster in their extra monster zone, you give them 5 Dustons and you get 5 Dustons from your deck. So you're going to give them a bunch of Dustons onto their side of the field, and you get a bunch of Dustons, so you don't have to so you can summon Star Duston and OTK your opponent. Now you might be thinking, oh, well, that's only 1 card that you're going to be able to put in this deck to make it work. Well, no, you have plenty of ways to actually get to this card to make the deck work, which is what's really cool. We then play 3 copies of Stygian Security. Stygian Security is actually going to be one of the ways that you're going to be able to get to that card, because if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a level 1 Fiend type monster from your deck, which is going to be House Duston, that you're going to be able to special summon from your deck to your side of the field, which is a really neat concept to be able to just immediately summon that card to your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Goblin King. Goblin King is kind of neat because this card has the ability that if this card cannot attack if there's another Fiend type monster on your side of the field, and it has the ability that gains attack, or the attack and defense of this card becomes the number of Fiend type monsters on the field, which is a pretty good effect to be able to just gain the attack on your side of the field to be able to increase the monster's attack. But while you control other Fiend monsters, this card can't be attacked, which is a really good effect just to be able to just not be able to attack into this one. They have to to go through the other ones, which is kind of cool. But it's a really good monster that gains a bunch of attack points to be able to just attack your opponent. It can go up to 10,000 attack points very easily. It reminds me a lot of King of the Skull Servants. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom as well. Ash Blossom is just really good in the deck to be able to stop your opponent from doing all sorts of shenanigans to you, but it's a really good card to be able to just stop your opponent. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance because the deck just really does not care about the extra deck at all. And Pot of Extravagance is just an overall really good card in the deck to be able to dig into the deck to get your Stygian security, or to draw into your copy of your House Duston, because basically what you're going to do with those is you're going to normal summon them and swing at your opponent with them, and you're going to take some damage, but you're going to be able to special summon out as many Dustons as possible. We then play 2 copies of Double Summon. Double Summon comes in kind of neat because it's going to help you get your monsters on your side of the field as quickly as possible and be able to link summon into other monsters. We play 3 copies of Where Arfdal. Where Arfdal is kind of neat because it has the ability that it's going to let you add any of the monsters that you need that are level 1 from your deck to your hand. So for example, if I normal summon out a copy of House Duston, I can then use Where Arfdal to add from my deck to the hand my copy of Star Duston, which is going to be the big OTK piece of the entire deck anyways. We then play 3 copies of Jack in the Hand. Jack in the Hand is kind of neat because it lets you reveal 3 level 1 monsters with different names in your deck, and your opponent adds one of them to your hand, to their hand, adds one to your hand, and shovels the one back into the deck. So you can reveal like a copy of Goblin King, a copy of House Duston, and a copy of your Star Duston. Your opponent takes one of them, and then you get to add one to hand, and they shuffle one back in the deck. So they're probably going to get this and shuffle it back into the deck. They're probably going to give you House Duston, and they're probably going to take the Goblin King for themselves because they're going to think that's the way to do it. At least somebody who's on the outside who's never played Dustons, that's what they're going to do. But actually the best card that you're going to get is House Duston, which is going to be the best play that you can get, or Star Duston. It doesn't really matter. Whichever one of the 3 cards that you get, it's totally fine to be able to add it from your deck to your hand. But Jack in the Hand is a really good card in this deck to be able to grab cards from the deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Final Attack Order. So Final Attack Order is the main card in the deck that's going to be helping you out a lot, because all face-up monsters on the field are changed to attack position, and their battle position cannot be changed. Why is that important? Well, guess what? If you have your copy of Star Duston on your field, and you tribute all your monsters that are 5 Dustons on your field, and your opponent has, say, a bunch of Dustons on their side of the field that you gave them, if you attack into 2 Dustons on their side of the field, they lose, which is kind of neat, and they can't switch them to defense. And while Star Duston is on the field, it specifically says that your opponent cannot flip, special summon any monsters, or activate any set spells or traps on the field. And if you control more monsters than your opponent does, you destroy this card, but this is going to be the only thing that you're going to control. So they can't special summon anything, so they can't get rid of them, and they can't change in defense, so they kind of just got to stare at you while you attack them with Final Attack Order. We then play 2 copies of Level Limit Area A. Level Limit Area A is kind of neat because all face-up level 3 or lower monsters on the field are changed to attack position, and they must remain in attack position. So basically you're making your opponent switch all of their Duston monsters that you give them into attack position, which is kind of neat. And then we play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence just to negate monster effects, because sometimes you need to negate them so you can go into more plays, which this card is super helpful in letting you do that. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. Now keep in mind, it is an extravagance build, so there's kind of subject to change. However you want to change the extra deck, it's up to you. You don't really go into it that much, so it's kind of totally up to you. So we're going to be playing a single copy of Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh is basically just here because you can normal summon out a White Duston or a Goblin King or Stygian Patrol and link it away to summon this. 1 copy of Relinquished Anima because it can gobble up opponents' monsters. 2 copies of IP Masquerade because this card's really easy to go into to help you link climb if you do particularly need to. 1 copy of Cerberus because it pops monsters and it's the least important of the nightmares that you do play. 2 copies of Nightmare Phoenix because it pops spells or traps. 2 copies of Nightmare Unicorn because you're going to use this with IP to go into the copy of the Unicorn to be able to bounce stuff, which this card is really important for the extra deck to be able to bounce stuff. 1 copy of Access Code Talker. You don't have to play Access Code Talker if you're trying to make this deck extremely budget. If you want to drop the access code talker out, you can drop it out and play another copy of Zero Boros, or you can play a copy of Boral Sword, or whatever you want. Boral Load, I mean, it doesn't matter in this position. Like, the extra deck really does not matter how you play it. We then play 2 copies of Boral Sword. Now, Boral Sword is an interesting card that I actually like to play in the extra deck as a double, because you can OTK your opponent extremely easily with this card, because it just has so much potential to be able to summon all those Dustons to your side of the field and then link them away to summon this to your side of the field. We then play a single copy of Topologic Zero Boros. Zero Boros is another one of those cards that you can play if you want to. The only thing that I will mention to you guys is if you don't want to play Zero Boros and access code, you can drop both of these and play Avermax, and that's totally another option for you guys if you want to play a budget build. We then play for the last 2 monsters. We're going to be playing 2 copies of Appaloosa. Appaloosa comes in handy in the deck because Appaloosa can help you negate monster effects, which is super helpful in the deck if you do get pushed into a corner with the deck, where you can go into your copy of IP and then go IP with 2 monsters on your side of the field to get you 3 negates and a 2400 beat stick, which is kind of cool. So that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. The basic combo of the deck really quickly for you guys. If you guys don't really understand how to play Dustons, I wouldn't be surprised, because this deck is very kind of weird. Basically, what you're doing is you're using this, attack your opponent, you take the damage, it'll go to the graveyard, summon this, swing at your opponent, and then this card special summons as many Dustons to your field and your opponent's field as possible, and then you tribute all the Dustons that you summon to summon this and lock your opponent down. And then if you can have one of the trap cards like Final Attack Order or Level Limit Area B, your opponent really can't do anything against you at all, because all the Dustons that they have are in attack position, and every single Duston in the deck has 0 attack. So they're taking the 5,000 every time this card swings. Even if you can only get 4 Dustons on your field, basically you still win, because your copy of Star Duston is still gonna be able to OTK your opponent. So that's pretty much it for this deck. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys. Definitely hit that bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.